guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Surya, your favorite sewing friend, and today I'm chatting to you about the Coppelia Cardigan by Papercut Patterns. So I don't know about you, but I'm always interested in anything to do with ballet. I think it stems from the fact that I was denied ballet lessons when I was a child. I'm still very upset by this, but because of that I have a very obsessive need to be like a ballerina, and therefore making clothes that resemble ballerinas makes me feel slightly closer to that goal. Not that I'll ever get there, but you know, this is a start. So depending on which version you're making, there are two styles. So the first style, which is the one that I chose to do, is the cropped version with a waist tie, which you tie at the back. And then the second version is a longer full-length style that is a faux wrap with the wrap sewn into the side seam. So I decided to do the crop version, but either version you choose and any size that you are, you will only need 1.6 meters of fabric. And so the fabrics that they recommend for this particular style are jersey knit fabrics. So things like merino wool jersey, cotton knits, cotton lycra, and viscose lycra. Any kind of knit with like, well, all knits have stretch really, but yeah, any sort of knit fabric with a stretch. I chose to do mine in a poly spandex. So it is extremely stretchy, like very stretchy. And I was a bit apprehensive about that because it was not a recommended fabric, and I was kind of looking at it like, or I don't know, maybe lycra is the same word for spandex? No, that's not right. Anyway, I got this fabric from the Remnant warehouse. It is a crepe pleated jersey and the composition is poly spandex. And it was on sale from the Remnant warehouse, so if you're interested in this fabric, I'll leave a link in the description box below so that you can check it out, because it's still on sale and it's still there. And apart from fabric, of course you'll need matching thread. I made a size S in this for my initial sample, which I was testing out, and I felt like I could size down. In my sample I used a cotton jersey, I think it was, like a plain cotton jersey I was using, not as much stretch as this one. So I still felt like from making that I could size down, although now I think about it, it was a pretty good fit. I'm not really sure about the sizing because I read like a lot of reviews about this particular top, and it has been released for quite some time. So I read a lot of reviews saying that to the people who've already made it, it felt a little bit big, so everyone was sizing down. But when I made the small in the cotton jersey, I don't know, it felt okay to me. The only issue that I had was the fact that I thought that I could size down because the neck was not sitting flush with, like the neckband wasn't sitting flush with the body, and I thought that was because the sizing was a bit wrong, but I think now it was because I did not stretch and sew the neckband to the neck opening properly, which, you know, then led me to believe that I could size down, rah-de-rah, so here we are. So I ended up just cutting this out in an extra small instead, and then, I don't know, fiddling around with the neckband, and then left the neckband as a size small and the waistband ties as a size small as well, and it still worked out, which was surprising to me. But I think this particular fabric is extremely forgiving. I think the drape of it is just really, like, it's not only is it stretchy, but it's also very drapey for a knit, so it sits well on the body. It just kind of like lies flat and it's a lot more slouchy, whereas like a cotton jersey, it was a bit it had a bit more structure, so I feel like you wouldn't need to size down. I think if you were using a cotton jersey, I don't think you need to size down. I think you just need to stretch the band out a lot so it sits flush with the body, which I will get into in more detail. Yeah, just know that this particular fabric that I'm using, I sized down and it was fine because it's so stretchy. Like, the only issue is like you can sometimes see like a little bit of my like back fat, but it's fine, no one cares about that. I'm good with this. It's great. It's very stretchy, very comfortable. But I guess if I didn't want to see any of that back fat, I would have left it as a size small, although it's still really stretchy. Yeah, I'm in two minds about whether to size up or down. Like I said, a cotton jersey, something that has a little bit more structure, less drape, would definitely be fine as the size you pick initially, true to size I think. And anything that's a little bit more drapey, a lot more stretch, I think you could size down comfortably. I was emboldened by my sewing of this particular top. You know, after I sewed the sample and then I made this and I was like, oh, it's fitting pretty well. I think I'm just gonna make everything a wrap top. So I made this one out of 2 random tees that I had. I just turned them into one wrap top, so that's why it's like kind of multicolored. In this wrap top adventure, I used the concepts that I learned to then just apply them to this upcycle, if you will, and it sort of turned out okay-ish. More okay than I thought it would turn out to be fair, but I'm learning lots about knits, and I think I quite like them because they're very forgiving. You can just stretch that into place. It may look a little bit puckered, but you can just iron that out. Knits are very forgiving. That's what I've learned from this project, very forgiving. So as I mentioned, I had a lot of struggle street with the neckband, and it was because I didn't stretch it out. Even though the instructions were there and they were like stretch and sew, and I just did not think about that at all because, you know, this is my first ever knit wear project that I've ever done, so I didn't realize that a lot of it has to do with, you know, you can stretch things as you sew. It's not an issue. Whereas with wovens, it's very much like, no, don't stretch the thing. It has to like fit together perfectly, and if it doesn't do that, then you're 100% wrong. So, but with knitwear, you can definitely, like, if things don't fit 100%, it's probably because at some point in that instruction it told you to stretch and sew at some point. So for the neckband, it definitely did say stretch and sew as you go, but I felt like it was a little bit lacking. I feel like the neckband, it fell short a little bit at the end of the wrap top opening, and I didn't know to stretch and sew. So I think to make things easier for yourself, in this sample I didn't stretch and sew. It fell short, and then therefore the waistband did not turn itself properly to hide all of those raw bits from the neckband. So to make things easier, I would suggest that you, from your total length of your neckband, or on either end, just mark like 1 centimeter from the edge of each one, and then pin that to the opening of the neckband at the end, and then pin the center of the neckband to, you know, the center of the neck, and then from there stretch it out and pin in place. And then when you're, so that everything is like even while you're stretching and sewing. So that way, I feel like that would help make it stretch and sew easier and sit flush to your body, and also distribute it properly so that you're not like, you know, stretched on one side versus another side so it looks wonky. I haven't yet tried this. This is just like my thoughts afterwards when I'm thinking about it, and I feel like the next time I make this, that is the method I will probably use to make it work, because I don't think I'll be making another one out of this particular fabric. I'll probably make one out of like a normal cotton jersey again. Yeah, so that's my notes to you about stretching and sewing that neckband. Just be sure that it does need to be stretched and sewn in order to sit flush with the body. I talked to one of my other friends who sewed this before, and she did mention a lot about the neckband and how you need to stretch and sew, and I sort of like took that into consideration, but then didn't really apply it because I was confused, like I always am. But yeah, in retrospect now I'm like, yes, stretch and sew neckband, very good. So apart from the neckband, I also had issues with the waistband and tie, which I mentioned, but if you stuff up the neckband at the ends, you will definitely stuff up the waistband and tie. So it's really important to ensure that you get the neckband correct, and like all the ends are sort of sewn together properly at the end with like a little bit of excess fabric sticking out, so that when you do like place the waistband in, when it's time to turn it up to hide all of that raw edges, it actually is hidden as opposed to sticking out randomly. Yes, that is one thing to take into consideration. Also, it's just me, but like I think I must have a problem with hems because I've always just like struggled so much with just understanding the concept of finishing off a hem. You know, stacker jacket, confused by hem, and I thought that was just a lining thing, but even this thing I was also confused by that, and I think it was because I read this one line which said one of the instructions before, you know, attaching the waistband to the bottom of the cardigan, to the hem of the cardigan, I read the line, stitch together your 3 hem tie pieces, press seams open, fold in half and mark center, which is what you're meant to do. You're meant to fold in half the entire, the hem tie pieces, and then mark the center so that that can sit in the center of cardigan. But I think my mind just like latched on to the word fold in half. So I kept thinking that when I was attaching it to the cardigan hem, the thing had to also still be folded in half, which was very wrong. So anyway, 3 hours later, I got over that and I managed to put it together, but that was like so confusing for me. Yeah, I'll just like explain it to you in more detail right now so that if you ever come into a situation where you were confused about finishing off the hem, this is what you should be doing. Okay, so here is the cardigan. So we lay it so that the inside is showing, and then we will get this and line it up with the center. Find the center of your tie, which you've just marked. So this is the center, which we will mark here. So the right side of the tie facing the wrong side of the cardigan. Pin it into place. So again, this part here isn't, it's still kind of open, so I'm just gonna pin it, like, because it's so stretchy, I'm just gonna pull it and make it sew against this line so we can close it up. Hopefully it doesn't look too weird, but just gonna work with what I got. And this is extremely stretchy, so I'm pretty sure it should be fine. Pin it onto the other side. Alright, so this is all pinned together, just sew all the way along, stopping at the end of the cardigan front and leaving this tie loose. This is the cardigan and what it looks like so far. The band has been sewn on, and then now if you open it up, and this is the rest of the band, and so we just want to sew the tie together from this point, the end of the front bodice, all the way to the end, then down, and then once you've done that we will flip it right ways out, because this is, it's obviously very hard to tell, but this is the right side, and so we're gonna sew them together and then turn it right ways out, and then the band will flip up and you'd have to top stitch around this end. So let's just pin this together and sew it down. Okay, so as I said, the ties are now pinned here all the way. So all the way, and then once you've sewn this part as well, you're going to clip the corners, because when you turn them out you want to have a nice pointy edge. Okay, so the tie has been sewn together, right sides facing. So now we're just going to clip the corners. Of both ties, and then turn them right ways out. Where's the other one? Here it is. Okay, so because there's a hole here where we can get inside and turn the tie right ways out. I'm just gonna try and squeeze this out, which last time was kind of a pain, so it takes a while. We're fiddling. They don't really say in the instructions how to turn it around. I assume it's just because it's a knit, it's fairly easy to just do it by hand without like a safety pin or anything. So just fiddle around with this for ages and turn it around. Hooray! It's turned right sides out. So now everything's encased and you should have a nice little closing. Right, so now is the tricky part, because basically if I turn it this way, oh wait, yes. So turn it around to the back and you'll see this exposed seam here, and that is the band. So we've now turned it right ways out, and this will naturally curve inwards because it wants to close like this. So all of this gross raw seam thing here that I smooshed in, I feel like I could trim this back now. This part here, now that I've closed it off, I'm just going to trim it back so it sits nicer. And then we're going to, because it's naturally turning in, you want to fold this by like a centimeter and then sew it down so that the raw edge is closed and this seam is also closed. So this is more like a top stitching situation, which I'm always extremely bad at. So you have to go carefully. Although this fabric, interestingly, just wants to just fold by itself inwards. I reckon I can get away with just top stitching this down like so, making sure that this seam is tucked in before you sort of fully in, and that should be your band. And one other thing to note is the stitch length. A stitch length that is too tight or too small will cause some puckering in your knit fabric, and I did not notice it in this one because this is very, again, this material is weirdly very forgiving, but with this particular one there's a bit of puckering on the hem here where I had a stitch length that was quite small. So 2 was the stitch length and it ended up making this part like pucker. So I'm thinking a longer stitch length would not have done that. So my recommendation to you is that when you're testing out your fabrics, for your new knits and whatever, just to test what it looks like in the machine on a scrap piece of fabric to see what stitch length works best, just to avoid like any puckering and things like that, just because you will be top stitching, you know, the hem for the tie, and all these stitches are very visible, so just want to test your stitch length first on a scrap piece of fabric, which is what I should be doing, but I never do. So in conclusion, I think that the Coppelia Cardigan is a very good introduction into working with knits. It's a nice flattering top to make. It's pretty quick to make as well once you get the hang of it. And yeah, you can just make this top in a day. Like once you've learned how to do it, I can now probably whip up this cardigan within maybe within 3 hours or so. I don't know, I feel like I'm overestimating how good my sewing skills are. I'm actually quite scattered most of the time, but regardless, this is a very good pattern. It should be on your list if you're thinking of making or trying out anything to do with knits, or you just want a wrap top. It's a good wrap top. I think you should try it out. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how this wrap top turned out. I think I'll make another one in black and white and red and grey. It's a lot of tops, but I'm also extremely excited, most of all, about the fact that I've now learned how to do a wrap top, well, the concept of a wrap top. And yeah, I'm very excited by this monstrosity, and I'm excited to make more of the same types of monstrosities in the future when we're allowed to go outside and I can go to the op shop to buy more random knits. Because there are lots of these tops, like just plain t-shirts or knit tops everywhere that are like, I don't know, $2 in the op shop. You can just make a wrap top out of it if it's too boring for you. And yeah, learning this concept of creating a wrap top, I don't know, was like the best part of this whole pattern adventure. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was a good, easy make, and I think that you should try it out. So that is the wrap on the Coppelia Cardigan, a ballet style wrap top. It is a wrap. If you enjoyed this pattern review and you would like to see more of my sewing adventures, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!